It is an image that violates the laws of logic. It looks like a glitch in reality, a special effect rendered by a bored god. A 1,000-ton Leviathan, a floating city of steel and glass lying on its side like a slaughtered whale rotting in the shallow turquoise waters of the Mediterranean. It was not swallowed by the abyss of the open ocean. It died mere meters from the shore, so close that the islanders could hear the screams of the dying over the sound of the evening breeze. This was the Costa Concordia. It was the pride of the Italian merchant marine, a vessel designed to mock the power of nature with climate-controlled luxury and stabilizers that smoothed the sea into a paved road. It was a billion-dollar promise that said, "You are safe. You are untouchable." But on the night of Friday, January 13, 2012, that promise was broken by the oldest enemy of the mariner, human arrogance. The tragedy of the Concordia is not a story of a storm. The sea was as flat as a mirror. The visibility was perfect. The ship was equipped with the most advanced radar and sonar systems humanity had ever engineered. There were no rogue waves, no icebergs, and no engine failures. The ship did not die because it was weak. It died because it was betrayed. Deep inside the hull, a jagged tooth of granite was already waiting to turn a night of galas into a tomb, but for now, the champagne was still cold. To understand the horror of that night, we must first understand the scale of the beast. The Concordia was not just a boat. It was a sovereign nation. It carried 4,200 souls, more than the population of the island it would soon crash into. It had Reed 500 cabins, a Formula One simulator, 4 swimming pools, and a spa larger than most mansions. It was a cathedral built to the worship of leisure. The ocean, however, is not impressed by tonnage. To the water, the steel hull was not a fortress. It was a fragile skin. The ocean is not a monster that hunts. It is a predator that waits. It waits for a single moment of incompetence to reclaim what belongs to it. And that incompetence wore a captain's uniform. Enter Francesco Schettino, a man who embodied the stereotypical charm of the Italian seafarer, tanned, confident, a lover of the spotlight. He was not a villain in the traditional sense. He did not wake up that morning planning to kill 32 people. His crime was far more common and far more dangerous: ego. Schettino wanted to perform a salute. He wanted to steer this massive, clumsy giant close to the island of Giglio to wave hello to a retired admiral living on the shore, and to impress the head waiter whose family lived on the island. It was a maneuver of pure vanity. He wanted to thread a needle with a sledgehammer. He turned off the alarm system for the navigation computer. He trusted his eyes over the data. He believed he could dance with the coastline. He did not know that in less than an hour, he would be claiming that he simply tripped and fell into a lifeboat while his passengers drowned behind him. The Mediterranean night was a velvet curtain, soft and impenetrable. Inside the belly of the whale, the air smelled of expensive perfume, searing steak, and the ozonic crispness of recycled air conditioning. It was 9:30 p.m. The Costa Concordia was not merely a ship. It was a sanctuary of light in a universe of darkness. In the Milano restaurant, waiters in white jackets moved with the synchronized grace of ballet dancers pouring Prosecco into crystal flutes. In the Atene theater, a magician was dazzling a crowd of hundreds, pulling illusions out of thin air, distracting them from the reality that they were floating on a hostile element. Ironically, almost comically, Celine Dion's "My Heart Will Go On" began to play in the main dining hall. It was not a bad omen to the passengers. It was just a song, a cliché, a moment of joy. The engineering was humming beneath their feet. 5 massive diesel generators. The beating heart of the city thrummed with a rhythmic, hypnotic vibration that whispered power, stability, forever. The lights did not flicker. The water in the pools did not ripple. The music was so loud it almost drowned out the silence waiting beneath the floorboards. Up on the bridge, the mood was different. It was the atmosphere of a cockpit before a stunt. Captain Francesco Schettino had stepped onto the bridge like a maestro entering an orchestra pit. He was not there to monitor a routine crossing. He was there to perform. He ordered the navigation systems to be switched to manual. He wanted the feel of the ship in his hands. He wanted to execute the incino the bow, a drive-by salute to the island of Giglio. He called for the Maitre di Antonello Tievoli to come to the bridge. "Come," he said. "Look how close we are to your home." It was a gesture of medieval arrogance performed with space-age technology. The Concordia was traveling at 16 knots fast for a vessel of this size in such shallow waters. It was a skyscraper moving at the speed of a sprinting athlete. On the radar screens, the coastline of Giglio was a glowing green mass. But Schettino wasn't looking at the screens. He was looking out the window, trusting his eyes in the pitch blackness. He believed he knew these waters better than the charts. He saw the lights of the port, the distant glow of the island homes, and he felt in control. The Luscol rock formation lay ahead. On the charts, it was clearly marked an underwater ridge of granite that had sat undisturbed for millennia. It was sharp, immovable, and hidden. The watertight doors were designed to save them, but in less than 20 minutes, they would seal their doom. Schettino ordered a turn. "Starboard 10, he commanded. The massive rudder shifted. The ship began to swing its thousands of tons of momentum fighting against the water. He was carving a curve through the sea, shaving the distance between the steel hull and the rock down to meters. To the passengers eating their dessert, the turn was imperceptible. The wine in their glasses barely tilted. They were insulated by layers of steel carpet and ignorance. They were safe. They were warm. They were happy. The illusion of the golden dream was perfect. But on the bridge, the silence was breaking. The second officer glanced at the radar. The distance was closing too fast. The rock was not where Schettino thought it was. The captain had delayed the turn by mere seconds, a trivial amount of time in a car, but an eternity for a ship weighing 114,000 tons. Schettino saw the foam breaking on the rocks too late. He barked a final order. "Hard to starboard!"
George!
He tried to swing the tail of the whale away from the teeth of the shore. The ship responded. The bow cleared the rocks. For a heartbeat, it seemed the gamble had paid off. The lights of Giglio drifted past the window, beautiful and close. Then the floor shook. The timeline fractures. We leave the comfort of the past tense. Everything is happening now. The sound is not an explosion. It is a scream. A 50-meter blade of granite slices through the port side of the hull like a razor through skin. The noise is deafening, a grinding, tearing screech that vibrates through the soles of 4,000 pairs of shoes. It is the sound of the invincible meeting the immovable. Deep in the bowels of the ship, the ocean rushes in. It is not a leak. It is a deluge. Thousands of tons of seawater violently smash into the engine rooms, hitting the superheated generators. Steam explodes. Alarms shriek. The heart of the city stops beating. In the Milano restaurant, the music dies. The lights blink once, twice, and then vanish. Absolute darkness. For a second, there is silence. Then the sound of confusion. A nervous laugh, a dropped fork, a child asking why the magician stopped.
Please remote calm.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain calm. The voice over the intercom is steady, practiced and lying. We have experienced a minor electrical failure. The situation is under control. It is the official lie. Above them on the bridge, Captain Schettino is staring at a panel of blinking red lights. He knows the engines are dead. He knows the watertight compartments are breached. He knows the ship is drifting, but he says nothing. He stares at the void, paralyzed by the magnitude of his mistake. He is not a captain anymore. He is a child who has broken a vase and is trying to glue it back together before his parents get home. In the engine room, the water is already rising above the heads of the brave crew members who stay behind, sealing the fate of men who will never see the sky again. The ship begins to drift. Without power, the rudders are useless. The wind pushes the dead giant back toward the island, rotating it. And then the horror begins. The Concordia does not just sink, it rolls. Physics takes over. As the water fills the starboard side, the center of gravity shifts. The floor beneath the passengers' feet begins to angle. 5 degrees, 10 degrees, 20. This is the horror factor. The world is inverting. In the dining hall, the dinner plates slide off the tables in unison. 1,000 porcelain crashes, signaling that the world has just tilted on its axis. Panic erupts. The electrical failure lie crumbles as gravity betrays it. People try to walk to the exits, but the floor is becoming a wall. The corridors are now slopes. The elevators are cages. Inside one of the elevators, water begins to seep through the closed doors. The passengers inside press the alarm button, but there is no power. They are trapped in a steel box, in the dark, tilting backward, listening to the ocean rise around them. On the bridge, the chaos is total. Officers are shouting conflicting data. Schettino is pacing, making phone calls to the cruise line headquarters, asking for instructions instead of giving orders. He is wasting time. Every second he delays the abandoned ship order is a sentence of death. The ship groans. It is a deep, metallic moan, the sound of the superstructure twisting under its own weight. It slams into the rocky shelf of the sea floor, finally coming to rest at an agonizing 80-degree angle. The luxury is gone. The warmth is gone. Now there is only the cold, the dark, and the scramble for survival. People form human chains to climb up the vertical hallways. Fathers throw their children across gaps in the stairwells. And in the midst of this hell, the captain makes his choice. He does not go down with the ship. He heads for the lifeboats. The sun rose over the island of Giglio, revealing the full grotesquerie of the night. The Costa Concordia lay on its side, a fallen titan, humiliatingly close to the port. It was no longer a ship. It was a cadaver. The blue funnel sat underwater. The water slides were twisted metal sculptures pointing at the sky. For months, the wreck sat there, a macabre tourist attraction. But while the world gawked, a different kind of army was assembling. If the crash was a monument to human error, what followed was a monument to human ingenuity. This was the Parbuckling Project. It was the most complex, expensive, and dangerous salvage operation in maritime history. The goal was insane: to rotate a 114,000-ton steel carcass, upright float it, and tow it away. It would cost $1.2 billion, double the cost of building the ship in the first place. The ocean had claimed the ship, and it did not want to give it back. The hull was filled with thousands of tons of water, rotting food and debris. It was stuck to the granite seabed. To move it required a force greater than nature. Engineers built a false bottom, a platform of steel and grout injected into the rocks. They attached massive hollow steel boxes called sponsons to the exposed side of the ship. These were the lungs that would help the giant breathe again. Deep inside the submerged cabins, A child's teddy bear floated against a ceiling that was now a wall, waiting for a sunlight it would not see for 2 years. In September 2013, 19 months after the crash, the operation began. It was a surgery performed on a dead giant. 36 hydraulic cables, each thick enough to anchor a suspension bridge, tightened. The tension was astronomical. If the cables snapped, the whiplash would slice through steel like a guillotine. If the hull cracked, the ship would spill its toxic guts into the pristine sanctuary. Slowly, agonizingly, the beast moved. It took 19 hours to rotate the ship just 65 degrees. It happened inch by inch, accompanied by the terrifying sound of screeching metal and crumbling rock. It was the sound of a tomb opening. As the Concordia rose from the water, the duality of the ship was revealed. The side that had been in the air was white and recognizable. The side that emerged from the depths was a nightmare, crushed brown and draped in dead seagrass. It looked like a decomposing face. But the resurrection was not just about steel. It was about the dead. Divers had spent months navigating the ghost city underwater. They swam through upside-down dining halls where tables hung from the ceiling. They navigated corridors filled with floating suitcases and drifting furniture. They were looking for the final missing souls. When the ship finally stood upright, the water drained from the decks like blood from a wound. It was then that the divers could access the deepest traps. They found the remains of Russell Rebello, a waiter who had stayed behind to help passengers, and Maria Grazia Trecarici. They were not found in the glamorous atrium. They were found in the mud and the dark, trapped by debris, waiting to be taken home. The salvage master looked at the resurrected ship and saw a triumph of engineering. The families looked and saw only a rusted cage. The Concordia was eventually towed to Genoa, a funeral procession of tugboats dragging the broken king to the scrapyard. It was cut apart, melted down, and recycled. The steel that once held the laughter of thousands became rebar for bridges and frames for new cars. The ship disappeared, but the scar remained. The steel is gone. The Costa Concordia no longer exists. It was picked apart by blowtorches in a shipyard in Genoa, its metal melted down and sold by the ton. The steel that once formed the walls of the honeymoon suites might now be the rebar in a highway overpass or the frame of a washing machine. The physical evidence has been erased. But the ghost of the ship moved to a courtroom in Grosseto. Here, under the harsh fluorescent lights, the final act of the tragedy played out. It was a theater of the absurd. Captain Francesco Schettino stood accused of manslaughter causing a shipwreck and abandoning his passengers. His defense was as chaotic as the evacuation. He claimed the rocks were not on the map. He claimed he steered the ship close to shore to save the passengers after the impact to claim the data proved false. And then, the most infamous defense of all, the claim that he did not run away. He told the judges that as the ship tilted, gravity pulled him down and he simply tripped and fell into a lifeboat. The world laughed, but the families of the 32 dead did not. The verdict was 16 years in prison. To many, it felt like a discount on human life. 16 years for sinking a city. 16 years for the violinist who went back to his cabin for his instrument and never returned. 16 years for the 5-year-old girl who drowned in the dark. Schettino sits in a cell today, but the true sentence was served by those who froze in the black water while their captain watched from the shore. The island of Giglio has returned to its quiet rhythm. The tourists are back. The water is turquoise and clear. The platform that held the resurrected ship has been removed, the seabed restored. If you swim there today, you will see fish darting through the seagrass, indifferent to the history that happened in the water column above them. But the scars remain. They are in the nightmares of the survivors who can no longer step onto a boat. They are in the empty chairs at 32 dining tables around the world. The story of the Costa Concordia is not just about a shipwreck. It is a modern parable. It is a warning about the fragility of our systems. We build machines that we claim are unsinkable. We build technology that we believe conquers nature. We put our lives in the hands of automation, assuming that safety is a guarantee. But the ocean reminds us of the truth. Steel bends, computers fail, and when the lights go out and the floor turns into a wall, we are just small, soft creatures in a universe that is cold and vast. The Concordia was destroyed by a salute, a gesture of vanity. It is a reminder that the most dangerous iceberg in the ocean is not made of ice. It is the human ego. The sea at Giglio is calm tonight. It laps against the rocks where the giant once died. It is patient. It is waiting for the next time we forget to be afraid. History is not just dates and numbers. It is the collective memory of our species. Thank you for taking the time to remember these events with us. If you have a story or an event you believe deserves to be told, leave it in the comments. We are listening.